Hello out there once again, all of my Planet Zoo pals, and welcome back to a zoo that I haven't visited in a very long time. This is Silverwood Zoo. It's my take on a North American zoo that's set in a forested southern area like Kentucky, West Virginia, or Tennessee. Much like my Silverwood theme park, which takes its inspiration from Dollywood and Silver Dollar City, I wanted to make a zoo in that same kind of style. Silverwood Zoo is the result of that idea. You could say that it's probably located just right up the road from Silverwood Theme Park and probably owned by the same company. I actually haven't built in this little zoo in a very long time. A lot of the recent DLC for the game put me back in Riverside Zoo, my other zoo I've been working on for years now. Most of the animals that we've gotten recently just seem to fit that zoo better. Now, we just got the Barnyard animal pack, and although I'm not the biggest fan of that pack as far as the animals we got in it, it did have some scenery that I thought would be handy in building things. It also got me to load up the game once again, and I remembered when the last DLC came out, the Eurasian Animal Pack, I did a Twitch stream and worked on something here at Silverwood. I also recorded that footage, and I never actually got around to actually using it for a video. So today, we are revisiting both Silverwood Zoo and that build. So the first thing we're going to do is modify the terrain where our new exhibit's going to go. And if you've watched any of the Silverwood Zoo videos before, you will know that when you first start into the zoo, and you go to the left, you have the beavers, the elk, the raccoons, all of that is on that left-hand side, and the path goes downwards. Now, my thought about this is that the entire zoo is going to be multi-level. It's going to have a lot of terrain shifts and things like that. When you start into the zoo, directly ahead of you, you will see the seals right there, but then behind that, I had planned on doing a large building that is going to be like a restaurant. It's going to be like a gift shop, but it's also going to overlook the bear habitat, which is going to be on this level that we're kind of building now. Now, we're not doing the bear habitat today. No, instead we were doing something a little different. When the Eurasian Animal Pack came out, the one animal that spoke the most to me out of that pack, the one that I really wanted to do something with, was the wolverine. So I started thinking about where I could put this actual habitat at, and I thought, wouldn't it be kind of cool if we have it kind of a cave that goes downhill, and while you're in the cave, you can look out over the habitat. But then I got to thinking, well, that's not really going to work because the habitat's going to be split, and I don't really know how I would be able to make it so that the animals can go back and forth between the two sides. I also think that a large habitat like that would just be way too much for the small wolverines. So instead, I got thinking, why don't we just make this two different habitats? We could do one on each side, two smaller ones. So obviously we're going to do the wolverine, but for the other side, I was kind of thinking about maybe using the Eurasian lynx, which was way back in the Europe pack. So now that I had an idea in my head of what I wanted to do, the next thing was just making it work. So as you can see, we have leveled out the terrain down here to about where I want it, and we've made a slope coming down from our main plaza area coming down into this level. The next thing is just going to be getting the cave system right, and of course, you know, kind of getting the size and then the shape of the actual habitats. So what I decided to do was go back into my other zoo, Riverside, and where we had just completed recently the blue penguin habitat, and I had made all these like rock cliffs and all these other things. I decided those would also work very well here. So I went in to that zoo, I copied all of those, made them a blueprint, and then I brought them over to here in Silverwood, and then I'm just kind of like taking them apart a little bit and made them into pieces, and then we're just going to put them everywhere and just kind of shape out the area that we're going to need for these two enclosures here. You know, I gotta say, I'm really proud of these rock walls that I made over in Riverside Zoo for the blue penguin habitat. These things are just so incredibly useful, and they have this like realistic fakeness to them. Like they have a way of like resembling something you would actually see at an actual zoo. Like if a zoo put some real effort into it instead of just like a concrete wall. Like I really see this could be something a zoo would actually put into a habitat if they're trying to spend, you know, just that little bit of extra money. If they're trying to get the realism, but they're just not trying to go overboard on a budget. So now what I'm doing is working on the overlook from inside the cave into the habitats on the left and right side. So the way I accomplished this was about halfway down the slope, I kind of flattened an area out and put in a little pathway, like a flat pathway area. This is going to be like right in the middle of the path down. And then we're going to take some of the cave entrances that I built, and we're going to place them on each side and kind of double them up there a little bit. And this will give us the base, kind of the foundation for what will be the central area overlooking the habitats there. Now, I didn't want the cave to be the only way to get down to where these two habitats are, where you can actually see the viewing areas. I wanted it to kind of curve around back up to the main entry plaza from the front right there. And I had to take care of that, which, you know, at the time, just kind of sloping the terrain and stuff out right here as well was kind of working. But I realized pretty quick that I was pretty far down, and it was going to take up a lot of area right over here where I'd planned on putting some shops or something over there. I have a feeling that later on, this is definitely going to come back and bite me in the ass, not having enough space there, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to that. Now, something else I wanted on these habitats, instead of just having a view from inside the cave, is I also wanted an entire front area. So I wanted to have the path kind of curve inward a little bit towards the habitat as kind of a lookout area there. And as you know, the path system in Planet Zoo and Planet Coaster both are not the easiest to work with. So I struggled quite a bit to try to get this just the way I wanted it, where it kind of, we had a main path and then it kind of curved off from that, and then kind of curved inwards into the habitat a little bit. And that way I could kind of lower some things down inside of it and make it kind of like an overlook that's just a little bit higher than the rest of the habitat, so you're looking down into it. Which leads me to the point where we are now going to start defining the habitat. And by that I mean essentially using the fencing to draw out a rough draft of where the enclosure size is going to be, like its limits, how far it's going to go. And right here I have a lot of trouble trying to get the curve right there, because right there where the cave is going to overlook into the habitat, I wanted it to be curved slightly. And again, I just had a lot of trouble with that. I always have trouble trying to curve the fencing. It never wants to work right for me. I eventually get it though. Once I draw out pretty much the size of the enclosure and where it's going to be, at that point I just kind of go back, start redoing the fencing here and there, setting up like what kind of fence do I want this to be. Is it going to be metal? Is it wood? How do I want this to look? I settled on a wood type, I believe, here. And then just kind of started taking out sections, making them smaller sections so I could get it as close to the path as possible. And I think it turned out pretty good. Where at that point, I then went back to try to get the curvature the best I could right there on the overlook. And as you can see here, I was able to get that done. I think by using the smaller sections, it was able to help me get what I was trying to do to make much better. And then just adjusting some rocks and trying to cover everything up, and then turning it into a one-way window right there. So you can see into the enclosure, but the animals inside aren't going to be disturbed by seeing you watching them constantly. And then I just had to go back and just do a little bit more finalizing on this overlook window right here, just to get it just right. And I finally decided that using 3 panes of the window is going to be probably the best solution there. And then I'm just going to finish things off with a little bit of detailing using some rocks there, kind of define out the platform a little bit more into the enclosure there where the outlook is going to be. Now, at this point, I'd already placed down the fencing around the front path right there, but then I was like, well, I really kind of want to dig a trench out to keep our wolverines on the inside of the enclosure so they don't get over into the fencing area, because we are just going to have a metal fence right there, and I don't want, you know, wolverines are pretty ferocious little creatures, and we don't want our guests to be harmed in any way, because, you know, people do stupid things when they go to places like zoos and stick their hands in there or try to feed them, and we didn't want any of that. So I thought a trench separating the viewing area from the actual enclosure would probably be the best thing to do there. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to take some of the plaster pieces, and I'm going to place them down and kind of make my trench using that. Since we have such rough edges and stuff where I dug everything out there, I didn't want the rough edges. I wanted it to be kind of concrete kind of look to it. Something like you would see in an actual zoo when a zoo would build a trench like this. It had to be steep enough that our wolverines wouldn't get down in there and then kind of I guess one side had to be too steep for them to climb up. The other side, if they did happen to get down in there, would need to be a little angled where they could climb back out. Although in reality, in the game anyway, I don't think they would even bother to go down in there. So I don't think they're going to get trapped down in there in any way. And then once I'm going to kind of make this one piece, we're going to take that and just kind of copy it around and rotate it just a little bit and kind of follow the edge of the path. And then we're going to take and kind of blend the terrain inside the enclosure in just a little bit, kind of with these concrete pieces. After which, it's just a matter of trying to make it look as seamless as can and make it look like it's a poured concrete kind of thing instead of just a bunch of small pieces all put together. So I'll just take some of the plaster pieces, copy them and move them over slightly, rotate them. And then you can see me now just trying to blend it into the path a little bit here by just angling the top pieces down. That way it goes underneath of our path we have down. And in the end, I think it worked out really, really well. Now I just have to struggle once again to try to get my fencing back in, where I had to remove it to dig the trench. But this time around, I think it ended up much better than how I had it originally there. I was able to get the curve to match the path just a little bit better, and therefore it worked out pretty good. Now, we're just going to do a little bit of detailing work. We're going to put some foliage in. We're going to start doing like painting the terrain there, as you can see there. And then I'm going to take some of these rocks here and just kind of make the terrain just a little bit more natural, and putting these rocks and stuff here and just kind of defining out different levels of the terrain, I think worked out pretty good. It also helped me to blend in, as you can see there, the concrete trench with the actual terrain of the habitat itself. I then started using some of these smaller rock pieces just to kind of start blending things together just a little bit more than having just the hard edges and stuff. I think the smaller rocks really help to detail things. Now I'm just going to start placing down some trees here, and you know what, when it comes to trees, I can spend hours going through all the different trees trying to find just the right one, and then when I do find the right tree, turning it the right specific way to get just the perfect look that I'm going for. In fact, I cut out probably a good half hour of footage of just me going through trees, finding the right trees that I wanted to use here. Now we're just going to throw down some grass here and there and just kind of sink it down into the terrain a little bit. And this really helps, again, to just blend things together, blending the rocks with the terrain itself, putting that grass and stuff in there, along with the smaller rocks. I also thought this would be a great place to use something that I don't really use very often, and that's those fallen leaves. I think that it gives a great effect, specifically in this zoo, because it gives a fall kind of look to it. And I don't know why I think it's this zoo specifically that helps. It just does. I also checked into the wolverines themselves, and they are burrowing animals. So I thought, you know what, let's throw some burrows in here that they can kind of go in and out and use as their little homes. And then do some moss and things around here and there too. And then I just basically from that point kind of redefined the land a little bit. I added some more of the flat rocks there to kind of level things out a little bit, and then just adjusted the terrain and then adjusted the leaves and the grass just to make everything, again, blend a little bit better and just look a little more natural. I'm always constantly trying to improve myself in this game and work with new techniques to improve my builds and make my habitats just look better. Now I had to add one more little piece to this habitat, and that was a falling tree for our wolverines to climb and play on, and I think it's just going to improve their quality of life. Now once I had finished all of the habitat itself and made it look really nice, I realized I'd forgotten one thing. How are our zookeepers going to get in and out of the habitat in order to feed them, or even to get our animals into the enclosure? So I decided what we would do is just kind of level out the land in the back, and I would make kind of an underground tunnel system right here, and our zookeepers would go into this and then they would bring it out into the enclosure themselves. So I'm just going to flatten a little bit of the space out behind all these rocks and stuff. And technically, I don't know if this would be considered underground, but it's all kind of part of the enclosure itself, like not really a tunnel system, is more of a hallway behind it. And one thing I like to do in pretty much all of my builds and zoo habitats is I like to try to keep the guests as immersive as I can into the habitat that they're viewing. So for example, trying to hide where the zookeeper's entrance is, like I'm doing right now. You can see here I've kind of made a cave entrance in the very, very back corner. And then I've lowered it just a little bit so that it's kind of downhill. And then using rocks, trees, bushes, just more grass and stuff, I was able to kind of hide that way back in the corner, and it keeps it out of the guest view, and I think the guests will appreciate that a lot more, and it just makes everything, you know, just a little bit more realistic. I've also went ahead and, as you can see here, just kind of lowering down the cave, just fixing every little detail there. Now, when it comes to the whole tunnel system that I was planning on building back here, that's going to come a little later on. So I did need to find a way to get our zookeepers down there right now. And I was thinking, you know what? I don't have time to really build all of this. Let's just make something kind of temporary and just put a path in here. That way the zookeepers can get there. They can get the animals into the habitat. They can feed the animals and do whatever they need to do. Now at this point, I feel like the habitat is mostly complete, and I really love how it came out. It's exactly the way I was kind of picturing it in my head, if not better. Considering I had done a rough draft to kind of see what it would look like before I actually started building everything for the video here, I think it actually ended up exceeding my expectations, and I hope that you guys really like how it came out too. Now I think it's time to finally add the Wolverines to the habitat. So I went in to our animal trade center and I looked through what limited options we had, and I found a couple, a male and a female, that I thought were probably going to be the best of what was up for offer right now. They're not perfect, their stats aren't the greatest, but I think they are okay, just as a couple of starting ones, and then we kind of build from that. So we added them into the habitat here, and you can see that they are definitely taking to it. I think they really, really like it. This one here really loves this tree right here. And at first, I was sitting here watching him. This is the first time I was watching one of them come and try this and inside the actual habitat. And I was like, wait a minute. He's going pretty far up. I didn't put that tree too close, did I, where he's going to jump out? Luckily, I did not. They're not able to get out anyway from the trees being close to the sides there. And yeah, so worked out better than expected. I did decide to make a couple changes though. I decided one fallen tree over there on the side wasn't going to be enough, and I wanted to kind of get maybe another log over in there. I thought it would be a good idea if I could try to maybe get it like it had, maybe the burrow that they had was like right underneath the fallen log right there. I thought that would look kind of cool, so I was trying to see what I could do on that. And, you know, just maneuvering a few things around, I think I was able to get close enough to how I wanted it to look. And as pretty much the final details for this build, it was just time to put in food, water, our enrichment items. I threw a water fountain into the back near the zookeeper's door. I think that's probably the best place for that. And then I gave them, you know, some food enrichment, as you can see here. And then the trench I didn't think was good enough. It didn't look realistic enough to me. So I filled it full of some rocks at the bottom of it. Like, you know, some of the rocks and stuff have kind of come down from the actual habitat itself, fell into our concrete trench there. I took some ivy and some of the leaves and stuff and filled it down in there, and I think that looked much better. After that, it was just a matter of finishing up our cave that's going to take our visitors from the main plaza down into this area here. So I, again, just took some of the rocks and kind of curved them a little bit. So these are pretty much just the rock walls that I have been using. I just made them into a tunnel system, turned them into the roof of our cave here. And yeah, this, it's not perfect, but I mean, it gets the job done, I think, well enough. Then it was just a matter of just putting the final pieces in and filling those gaps on the top of the cave, and voila, we were done. And here we are taking a look at the finished build. Well, half finished anyway. I still have the other side over there to do, which is going to be the next video. I still haven't 100% made up my mind yet on what we're going to put over here. Probably going to use the lynx, but if you guys have a better idea of what animal should go next to the Wolverines right here, let me know in the comments below. But right now, let's concentrate on what we did do, and that's the wolverine habitat here. So when the Eurasian Animal Pack came out, I honestly had no idea what I was going to do. And I just kind of thought about it and thought about it and thought about it, and this is what I ended up coming up with. And, you know, for not having any idea to start with, I believe we ended up pretty good. What just flew out of the... Wow! That wolverine just threw out his feeding stick all the way out of the actual habitat. All right, I will definitely take note of that. They don't like the feeding stick. Okay, well, we'll have to remove that. Or maybe this guy just doesn't know his own strength. Maybe he's Super Wolverine. Maybe we should call him Logan. What do you guys think, huh? I think the little burrows were a great addition to this habitat, and the way that I laid everything out just fits perfectly with what I really wanted to kind of go for here. And putting the little rocks and leaves and all the debris down here in this little trench really adds that little touch of realism as well. I also want to kind of show off the main feature right here. So coming from the main plaza here, when you enter into the zoo, if we go across the seal pond over here, this is where you actually get down to that lower level here. And this is the cavern system that I built. And yeah, this worked out pretty good. I think I could use a little bit more detail, and I'll probably come back to this off and on to try to get everything good. But if you come over here and you kind of have this little area right here where our visitors can go over here and look out and kind of watch the wolverines from this little overlook right here, I think that is a perfect little touch right there too. And of course, from the other side, you can't see the visitors actually looking at you. So if, you know, the wolverine here isn't going to be bothered by being watched from up here in this area. So if they, hopefully they don't have any kind of shyness that needs to be taken care of, like the red pandas. I have a constant problem with the red pandas in my other zoo just not wanting to come out and be seen because they just get like stressed out too much. Still got to flesh out this little backstage area here quite a bit as well, because I'm still not sure what we're going to do coming off of that main path right there coming in over here. I was thinking, you know, some shops and stuff, and of course this is going to be the exit. So the main gift shop is going to be like right here. So when people go to leave the zoo, they'll be going through here. Again, that was modeled after Silver Dollar City because the entire entrance of our zoo is modeled after that. Come over here to the front. Yep, so I kind of just took inspiration from Silver Dollar City to build all of this. There we have our entrance over here, and then the exits and stuff would be over here through the Emporium. And yeah, obviously there has to be a main path that is going to come from the main square right there, though. Come around over through here, and then come down this way with maybe a path that goes off this way. And maybe we might go that direction as well with some other exhibits and stuff. But like I was saying, the next thing that we're going to be working on is going to be the habitat over here next to this one. So just trying to figure out what we're going to put in here. Is it going to be the lynx, or are we going to use something else? Sound off in the comments down below. And then once we finish off with that one, then the next episode after that one for Silverwood Zoo is going to be coming back up here to the main square, and we're going to build the big restaurant and like bear themed building right here, which is going to be an overlook for our different bears that we have. The grizzlies, black bears, things like that are all going to be down in here. So the main habitat is going to be like a hillside right here with a building up there that kind of overlooks into it, maybe a restaurant kind of thing. And it's going to connect the two areas over there. So the one that we just got done building, and then this area over here where our beavers and stuff and all of this are, that's all going to kind of come around through here and connect up. I also kind of want to put some big cats in here too, which I'm thinking maybe over in that area, or maybe wolves, but somewhere in this area is going to be our big cats. Alright, so that's going to do it from here at Silverwood Zoo. I hope you guys have enjoyed my return to the game, and hopefully down the road we'll see a lot more of this as I kind of free up some time and can get back into building a little more into Planet Zoo. But that's it for today's episode. So wherever you guys are in the world, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, and I'll see you in the next video.